Welcome again to Let's Get Writing presents Author Reads. And this is the part of the whole presentation because we do author interviews, but here we get to hear them read some of their work. And welcome, Carolyn R Parsons.
Thank you.
So nice to see you again. We just did a beautiful interview where you talked a lot about your work and what you're doing. And what came up actually is this recent book that you've written, a novella for young adults. And you want to share some of that with us today. But tell me a little bit about it, the whole project and what it's all about.
So the Key of Impasto is an episode, a novella, in a series called the Slipstreamers Series by Engen Books. And so it's a young adult series that comes out, they release a novella every 3 weeks. Multi-author project. So I was invited to participate as one of the authors. And this is book 11. It's called The Key of Impasto. And the premise of the entire series is that Cassidy Kane is a young woman, a bit of a genius, who is an archaeologist. And she doesn't like being in the lab and being tied down a little bit. So she goes on to these adventures into other worlds. This professor has discovered there are portals all around the earth, and through those portals you can jump through and go into other worlds. Cassidy is an adventurer, and so I created a world called I can't even remember the name of it.
Part of creating, Carolyn.
I forgot the name of it.
Get the book to find out.
And you'll find out. Which is not as relevant what it was called, but I created a world, and in this world, the artists are the rulers. It is a very beautiful world, so brilliantly beautiful, in fact, that when regular human people go in there, and they have tried, they become enthralled by the bright colors and brilliant landscape, and they just can't. They go into a trance, and they immediately are picked up by the guards and tossed back out into our not so brilliantly beautiful, enthralling earth. So Cassidy has to overcome that challenge and escort the president-elect of Impasto, of the country, the world. The country, back to her presidential palace and prove that she did not steal the Key of Impasto, which is what the book's called.
Okay.
And so
Impasto.
She's been...
okay, go ahead.
Impasto, yes.
Yeah.
So when I was writing this story, when I came up with the premise of it, I decided that I would use Vincent Van Gogh, and I know that's not how you pronounce it in Dutch, but that's how we pronounce it in North America. I knew that I thought that I would use his work as the inspiration for the world because of his beautiful, brilliant paintings. And in fact, the Key of Impasto, the impasto is the painting technique that he used. If you read the story, you will find the names of the characters are often anagrams of people and places and other things that would have surrounded his life back when he lived and painted in Holland and in Paris and other places he traveled through too, and his family names and his girlfriends' names, and so I just made anagrams of all of them, and so you will find that there's quite a few. I have a list of them somewhere because as I was writing the book, I tracked them, but I haven't located it lately.
That's a job in and of itself to track things like that. One of my favorite artists, Van Gogh, and I'm picturing the sunflowers.
I think. Yeah. When I think he's the greatest, actually. I think he's the greatest.
So much movement in his paintings. Well, take us away into this magical world and let us meet your character. I'm just going to go down to the side here and give you full screen. And please do entrance us.
I'm just gonna read chapter 1, and please forgive me. This is the first time that I've read this out loud for an audience, so I may stumble a little bit, but I'll do my best. To set it up, Cassidy is just coming in. She's been called to the lab of the professor that knows where all these portals are. So that's where it starts. Tell me quick. I simply hate waiting. It was rare that Professor Herbert Gamgee didn't hear someone approach him, given his lab was in a wide open space, stark, sanitary, silver, and cold, that sound echoed through like an early warning alarm. Today, however, he was clueless that Cassidy Kane was behind him until she tapped him on the back and spoke. Professor Gamgee turned, and as he did, he knocked a small glass item over that rolled to the edge of the table and off its edge. With the reflexes of a much younger man, he stretched out his hand and caught it before it dashed to bits on the cold, hard floor. His heart pounded. That was a close call. He peered into the bulbous globe and gulped. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I'm fine, thank you. How are you doing?" Cassidy wound her hair into a ponytail and slipped a band over it to hold it in place. "What?" Professor Gamgee asked. "I said I'm fine. How are you?" Cassidy repeated. "No, not you. Her," he said, pointing to the odd-looking object he just saved from being bashed to dust on the floor. He turned back to it, tapped the noise-reducing headphones on his head, and asked again, "You know, Doc, there's a fine line where eccentricity slips over into wackadoodle, and you're close to crossing it. Her who?" Cassidy sized him up, finger at her chin. His white headphones and microphone oddly balanced with his thick glasses. Was he talking to a snow globe? No, he must have somebody on Skype. Yes, of course. "It was an accident. I didn't mean to." No, no, no. She's capable. She isn't clumsy at all. I was wearing the headphones and I didn't. Yeah, maybe you're right. We can put you in a. I hope you and your snow globe will be very happy together. I'll leave you two alone, Cassidy. Cassidy lifted a sardonic brow, folded her arms, and waited for him to regain his sanity. She had no intention of leaving. "What?" he yelled, this time to Cassidy and not his imaginary friend. "Take off the headphones." Cassidy rolled her eyes and pointed to her own ear to indicate what she was saying. "What?" "Take off the headphones," she repeated louder. "Oh, yes, Cassidy. Okay, sorry, yes, just a moment. Corey, I have to talk to Cassidy. I'll be right back," he said, before he pulled off the headphones and set them on the table. "Who are you Skyping with?" Cassidy glanced around looking for the computer. "I'm not Skyping with anyone." He indicated the laptop on a shelf, lid shut. "Then you're talking to yourself? And what is that anyway?" She pointed to the oddly shaped rock or geode or something on his desk that he'd nearly broken when she'd startled him. "That's not a what. It is a who." "Well, it's a what as well, I guess. It's all quite spectacular, really. She, I mean. Both it and her. She's your next assignment, and she's a marvel." "She?" Cassidy moved in closer, feeling a bit ridiculous. It looked like an inanimate object. She reached out with her fingernail. Tap, tap, tap. "No, not that. That's her, container. She's inside. Look right there at the tiny window." "I didn't notice it at first either. I found this in a potato field in the Netherlands near the portal at Cleve years ago. It was filthy. I washed it and used it as a paperweight. Can you believe it's been on my desk the whole time? I thought it was an ordinary lump of glass. Forgot all about it until yesterday when I finally heard her." "Okay, back up. Heard who?" Cassidy was getting exasperated at his disjointed explanation. "Corey. Corey in the jar." "What?" "Look, here, put these on and look." Gamgee held out the headset and Cassidy took it. She put on the headphones, adjusted them to fit over her hair. "Say hello," Gamgee encouraged. "Hello," Cassidy said, shooting him a look. "Hello," a woman's voice answered. "Oh, hello," Cassidy repeated, looking around the room for the source of the voice. "Where is she?" "Look in there," Gamgee said with a triumphant grin. "As I said, look through the tiny window." Cassidy bent down for a closer look at the globe. There was a tiny electronic device attached to one side with tape. Otherwise, it appeared to be a ball of etched glass, and not really a globe at all. It was more jar-shaped, kind of fat in the middle, flat on the bottom as if it were carved out of a solid chunk of quartz or some similar crystalline mineral. She touched the top of it again, noting it had diamond-like cuts as well, tiny facets so small that it nearly appeared to be smooth until you looked closely at it. She picked it up. "Careful," Gamgee cautioned. "I'm always careful." Startled that it was so lightweight, she turned it over. Hollow, perhaps? It caught the light as she rotated it, and colors refracted off its surface. Red, yellow, blue, primary colors only. How peculiar, she thought. Then she spotted the window Dr. Gamgee had referred to. It was tiny, no bigger than a nano SIM card for a smartphone, square and clear like a little keyhole. She squinted and peered through it. Then it opened, and she didn't need to squint anymore. Without changing at all in any discernible way, it expanded, and suddenly, somehow, there was a full-size window in front of her. An illusion of one anyway, as she still held the orb in her hand. It was impossible. The scale wasn't right. She glanced away. Everything appeared normal, the globe still the same size in her hand. Yet when she looked at the tiny window, bam, it grew larger, so that while she held a palm-sized container, the window to the inside of it allowed her to look as though she looked out into allowed her to look as though she looked out one of the windows in Professor Gamgee's lab towards the outside. Say hello to Corey, Gamgee said, his voice high-pitched and excited, as though he were introducing her to Howard Carter, the famous archaeologist who excavated King Tut's tomb. Except this was even more unlikely than meeting a dead hero. Cassidy looked again. She'd seen the window, but no person. In fact, all she could see was a swirl of red, yellow, and blue that glazed the view like a painted curtain over a window. She was about to call him on his practical joke when the colors morphed into a more defined pattern and churned like a smoothie in a blender until it seemed as though all the colors in existence blended together like the molten wax of Crayola 64 crayon pack. Then a whirl of light arranged itself in a mesmerizing prism until a tiny dot appeared at its center. The dot could only be explained as a point of clarity. It grew so that the window enlarged further before her eyes, and she could see into its depths. Cassidy was held spellbound. That's incredible, she said, as fields of green grass and blue sky unfolded in her line of vision. Then finally, into the field walked a young woman, probably around Cassidy's age, in a blue dress with a red blouse and yellow shoes. Her hair was the color of wheat in sunshine, and a smile dented her lovely face. I'm Corey Kirkvest, and I need you to return the key home, the pretty young girl in the globe said. Professor Gamgee says you are the one who can. I'm Cassidy Kane, Cassidy replied, breathless at the scene before her. Do you see her? Do you see her? Professor Gamgee asked, his voice as excited as a child. I do, Cassidy said. She could not terrorize away from the world in the palm of her hand. She didn't even want to try. She wanted to look into the depths of the orb forever. Oops, Corey, she's stuck, like I was. Perhaps you should, Professor Gamgee said, noticing Cassidy's trance. The colors faded, and in a moment Corey stood under a pale blue sky, as ordinary as the one outside the lab, with bland white clouds that shuffled along. Released from the hold on her, Cassidy looked away from the globe. She turned to Gamgee and said in her best Desi Arnaz impression, You, Professor, have some splaining to do. And that's the end of chapter 1.
Oh my gosh, I got to come back up here with you. When you're writing for young adults, it just you're right in there, and it's moving right along, isn't it? It's just so much fun.
Yeah, it has to be. Well, I felt it did anyway, because I mean, it's been a while, but I remember the stuff that I read as a teen and into my 20s. And I really, if I was reading action stuff and adventure stuff, it really needed to move. So, but you also want a bit of amusement and lightheartedness as well. You don't want to be bogged down in serious things. And I just really had a blast. You could just let your imagination go and write. And I wrote it in third person. My new series is going to be in first person, which is even a totally different thing. But this is a very lighthearted sort of thing. It's an adventure story. So I really wanted it to move. And it does. Every chapter leads really quickly into the next, to the next, to the next. And
Excellent.
Lots of action going on.
Well, I'm glad that you shared that with us. And just for people to know that your book 11, I think, or your chapter,
yes.
How does this go?
So they call it a series. They're releasing one every 3 weeks. So they call them episodes. So it's like a television series, right? Where you have episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And so every week, every 3 weeks, they release a new one. And mine is book 11. So it starts off with the first book kind of explains how Cassidy fell into this, adventure sort of thing. And she kind of thrives on it. She loves adventure. She gets bored very easily, and she gets in some really tight scrapes, like she comes close to some, it's very, Indiana Jones, but she's a 24-year-old girl.
Excellent.
And it's not, it addresses some themes and some ways we look at.
Oh, we lost Carolyn. She'll be back in a minute. But in the meantime, this project is with Engen Books. And one of the things I'm thinking of is, is this a great way to engage people with writing? I love the concept of what they've come up with. And Matt LeDrew has been a guest on my show, Let's Get Writing. And Matt talked a lot about his company, Engen Books. So if you'd like to check that out, go to my YouTube channel, Kathryn Taylor TV, and watch the full interview with Matt. And this is under his company where Carolyn is doing the story. And she did say to me, she's in Lewisport, and she said that mostly the internet's been great there, but the odd time it goes down. So I'm assuming that that's what happened right now, but she'll probably pop right back in. And while I'm on this point, I just want to mention that Carolyn, here is a bit of the artwork for this particular book, and Slipstreamers, from which she read. And I think there's another one. She's on her way to the moon as well, but that's a different story. And I wanted to show you the Key of Impasto. So that is coming soon, but it's actually released. And that was what she read. And even though that's all you saw, what you didn't have an excerpt from The Forbidden Dreams of Betsy Elliott. This is Carolyn's other book, and she has 3 novels, a book of poetry. She's a very prolific, I would say, writer, artist. And this book is more historical fiction set in Newfoundland on Change Islands, where both Carolyn and I, many, many years ago, came from. Not us directly, but our ancestors, because my great-grandfather and her great-grandfather were brothers. And that's on the Parsons side. And my grandmother was a Lucy Parsons from Change Islands. And so the writing world was really fun, that we found out without ever knowing about each other that we were related. And then to find out that we were both engaged with writing, which is what we both love, and reading. And so it makes you wonder sometimes what runs through a family. And then here we are, and never having known each other. But maybe she's not going to make it back on. So thankfully she did get to finish the reading, and you enjoyed it. And a little more information on Carolyn. And if you want to check her out in more detail, carolynrparsons.ca is her website, and her and she's coming back. And she's also very active on Facebook. Okay, we're going to bring you back up in the stream, and I'm going to hide this right here. There we go. Hi. I was.
Hello.
Oh, now I hear 2 of you.
I do too, and I don't know why.
You know why? There might be 2 windows open. I've experienced this before myself, and she's gone again. So this is almost like a sci-fi episode here right now. So maybe what I'll do is give her one more chance to get back on. But I think we've had a pretty good wrap on what she was doing. I'm going to show you back in the screen, Carolyn. And yeah.
My screen powered down on my computer because I hadn't used the computer. I wasn't actually touching it. And I think that's what happens. It has a... Yeah, I had set that up. Yeah, and it goes to sleep. And I was like, oh no. So I should have touched my space bar or something.
Yeah.
But well, those are the... And I didn't think that was going to be a...
They're the joys of doing live broadcasts and shows like this, and you can never listen. I don't know how many times that I've done a show and I go, darn, I didn't get that up, or I didn't get this up. And it can become very challenging. But
it is, and I didn't even think of it. So...
Well, while you were gone, I showed your other book, The Forbidden Dreams of Betsy Elliott. I talked about the work you do. I shared your webpage. I think I have you covered, girl.
All right. Thank you.
And I think
you're a pro.
Well, it's fun to work with you. And if there's any last words that you might like to say, and I sent people your webpage, told them they can find you on Facebook. And I did talk a little bit about Matthew LeDrew of Engen Books, and he's available on an earlier show. Is this a concept for what you were doing, this novella? Is it a concept of Matt's, or did someone else come up with it? It is.
Well, Engen Books. So Matthew is co-owner of Engen Books. So who actually came up with this, I'm not sure, but it was Matthew who invited me to participate, and he's publisher in that company. So so very much an Engen Books concept, and I was excited about it because I remember those series when my kids were younger, in particular. Well, we all grew up with series. I mean, Nancy Drew, Hardy Boys, but then later on, my kids had the Goosebumps and, all those kinds of series. So this kind of serial reading for kids, and where they get used to characters and get used to stories, and it sort of continues. This is sort of something that had some nostalgic meaning to me as well. And I think it's great that, another group of kids will have this. I would love to see these books in the public school system, even though they're not Newfoundland centric. It would be really nice if Newfoundland kids could understand that they can grow up and write things that are of interest to the greater world, and that they can become, Matthew and the whole Engen Publishing is an entirely Newfoundland company. Just like we have some great publishers here. We have some great options.
We sure do.
And so this is on ebook now, but it is coming out in print. So, grab a copy. Great gifts for the grandkids and the kids. And, you're always looking for something, and it's for boys and girls. It's.
There's never a better gift than a book, and that's something I think that you and I both gave to our kids and their readers.
And it's still my favorite gift to receive.
Yeah, mine too. Yeah, it was always special. Well, wonderful. Thank you so much. And I think we've shared a lot of information today. And I think that you and I both deserve to go and take a break.
I think we will. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter to you as well. And actually, when this show does air, it's going to be a little bit later. Easter will have passed. So
it will.
We haven't lost our minds, but we're just being joyous about the day. Well, enjoy Lewisport, and I will talk to you again soon, Carolyn. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.